Dear Guru Maharaj, please explain how should we properly offer obeisances to the spiritual master at his presence, by left side, right side, or towards him in his direction, or it doesn't matter.
Hari Bhakti Vilas is the prime guidebook in all such matters for Gauriya Vaishnavas. Therein it is stated that one should offer obeisances directly facing. That means not with the left side, not with the right side, but just directly facing.
To spiritual master, or
yeah, to the spiritual master. It's different for Krishna and for demigods also. And the hand should be outstretched and crossed and like this. Right and left hand. Oh, actually, right should be on. Right and left hand crossed.
Yeah.
So the right hand is going to touch the right foot of the Guru and the left hand the left foot. Like that. Problem arises with that in our temples, because mostly the Vyasa sons of Śrila Prabhupada are directly facing the deities. So if you do that, you'll have your feet toward the deities, which is not proper. Yes, and that just made you think that you shouldn't have your back to the deities either. And even in a situation like this, if you offer like this, then you're going to stretch your body with your legs showing to beautiful Gauranga. Actually, obeisance should be offered with the upper part of the body in front of the personality to whom the deity, to whom the obeisances are offered. The upper part of the body, yes. Sometimes we see devotees, they offer respects and the legs are just right in front of the deity or whatever, which is not proper. In the late 1960s, when Śrila Prabhupada started to introduce more of the Vaishnava rituals to his disciples in America, he made one statement. As they were suddenly feeling burdened with all these rules which they had not imagined before. Śrila Prabhupada said, if I told you all the rules, you would faint. He didn't personally try to introduce so many rules. As far as ISKCON is concerned, that rule in the Hari Bhakti Vilas is in the Hari Bhakti Vilas. It's not in our practice. It's not seen in our practice. In one purport in the 4th canto of Bhagavatam, Śrila Prabhupada writes that he alludes to the fact that you can't expect devotees in the Western countries to follow so many rules. At the same time, he did want to introduce Varnashram Dharma. He wanted to do that by, first of all, establishing a class of Brahmanas, because the body needs a head, it needs intelligence to guide it. And Brahmanas traditionally, they do follow so many rules as given in Shastra. In traditional India, when generally reference to Shastra was not to philosophical points so much as points of behavior, the huge body of literature governing behavior, every aspect of human behavior. Sita pragyasya kabhasha samadhistasya keshava stitati kim prabhashita kim asita vrajeta kim. Arjuna asks Krishna about the behavior of a self-realized person. How does he converse? How does he walk? How does he talk? How does he sit? You may think, well, what does it matter how you sit? But it makes a difference. For instance, there you go. You can understand, yeah. I was just about to make a point about the way you are sitting. Sometimes you'd hear Srila Prabhupada saying, sit properly. What does it mean, sit properly? You sit any way you like. But everything we do reflects our consciousness and reinforces. You're a psychologist, and it also creates an atmosphere. In a group setting, it creates an atmosphere of how things should be done properly. So much of what human beings do is symbolic, and you probably studied this in your psychology. Different symbols, just like going like this is now almost universally accepted as saying, yeah, good. But in many cultures, including in traditional Indian culture, it symbolizes something quite rude. Although this has changed in India now also. The way you dress is also very important. It has a lot of symbolic overtones. Let's say you were going to, you were asked to meet Господин Putin. Not very likely, but not impossible also. Would you go in shorts and the kind of shoes you wear on the beach? I don't think so. It would be considered very improper, because he's a very important personality. So what about when you go to meet Gaurnitai? Think about it. In some temples still in India, there's a dress code. You're not allowed in unless you're dressed in a certain way. So I'm getting a bit off the point of the original question, but I'm just extrapolating a bit. Accepted within our society is to offer to the spiritual master in the same way as we offer to Vishnu deities, that is, with our left side facing the personality.
Yesterday you mentioned that Śrila Prabhupada stressed reading his books rather than hearing his lectures. But if there is not so much inclination for reading, but rather it's easier to hear the classes, is it acceptable, or still should we try to develop habit of reading? And another similar, that Śrila Prabhupada often speak that we should read 1 hour a day. Is it like his injunction? Should we strive for this number of time reading, or it's not necessary?
This is one of those questions, how can I get away with as little as possible? If the Bhakti Shastra course pass is 60%, how can I get 60%? It's, you've got a long way to go to be Brahmins. I don't know any instruction of Śrila Prabhupada where he said that, well, if you don't like reading, don't read. It was more like, if you don't like reading, read anyway. He used to get on the case of his disciples for not reading. Nowadays there are audio books, so you can combine the two things. And I listen while I'm taking prasad, and then I go back and read afterwards. It's a very good combination, I find. But I don't find the same amount of depth of application of the intelligence as when you're directly reading, from hearing. And so certainly Śrila Prabhupada, he did push his disciples a lot. It wasn't just that the Krishna consciousness movement just spread all over the world just like some abracadabra. He pushed them to work hard, to surrender, to read his books, to follow the principles. So yeah, reading is best. If you can't read, actually most people can read. There are some people who are illiterate, but most people can read. We have psychologists here, and then Mataji psychologist there. We have a lawyer here, Lena. Any doctors? No. So all these people, to become established in your profession, you have to read a lot. It's not easy reading either. I don't know in Russia, but if you go in a lawyer's chamber, they have whole big libraries of it, and the books, they're always consulting the books. Śrila Prabhupada said that he wanted his disciples to know his books just as the lawyer knows their books. So I thought about that, and it's just like in the lawyer's chamber they have so many books on all technical stuff, cases and interpretations of cases, so many things. And it's not that the lawyer knows every single word in every book, but he knows them well enough to have a good idea where to look when a particular circumstances arises and he has to deal with such a case. And if he's not sure, he could call up a senior lawyer, a lawyer better than him. Although generally among lawyers there's rivalry. So, from what I can see, Srila Prabhupada, he aimed a lot of his writing and a lot of his verbal instruction at disciples who he wanted to or expected them to come out to the level of brahmanas. From about 1974 onwards, Srila Prabhupada, although he had been stressing it even before he came to America, he began to stress more and more on the establishment of varnashram dharma, saying that we can't expect everyone who comes to Krishna consciousness to be scholarly and very strict in following everything. So intensive study is meant for the persons who are more intellectually inclined. And much of modern education, it's aimed at training people in Shudra-like consciousness. So we find so many young people who they don't have it seems they don't have even the capacity to sit down and read anything more serious than a comic book. Do comic books still exist?
In Russia you have whole course on Bhagavad Gita in comic.
In Japan there's a whole thing. I saw in Japan people read it, they get a big thick comic book, they read it on the train ride from Osaka to Tokyo. It's about 400 kilometers, they cover it in about 2 hours and they just throw it away. Bhagavad Gita comic. That's made by devotees?
It's Bhakti Shastra course book.
I see. Bhakti Shastra in comics. The catering to the lowered level of intellectual application. Yeah, I've been reading Bhagavad Gita for so many years, and it is a great ocean, and there's so much, and all the time there's just new realizations and new insights. Has anyone here been to Thailand or Malaysia? Do you know what durian is? Okay. You know that? Did you eat it? Do you like it? See, put a thumb up.
Вот она сказала, да.
Do you like it? Did you like it when you first took it? Oh, okay. All right.
Сразу вам понравилось?
I mean, I didn't like it, and I was told that, well, it's an acquired taste. It's an acquired taste. It means something you don't like at first, like smoking cigarettes.
But what are you speaking
smoking
about?
cigarettes.
Yes.
Durian is a
Durian.
fruit. If you keep one durian in the room there, the whole room will smell, and it's not a nice smell. At least I don't know. It smells something like a pig's fart or something. Anyway, in Thailand and Malaysia, people are wild about it. It's almost as popular as eating roasted cockroaches.
Это практически
roasted grasshoppers. So anyway, maybe I should give an example. Smoking. Maybe some of you have the habit of smoking cigarette. When you first smoke a cigarette, you don't like it, but you go on, I gotta be a man, so. And then after a few times, you get the taste for it. My father was my first guru. From him I learned not to smoke cigarettes, because I didn't want to...
Мой отец был моим первым гуру.
So, like that, it can be an acquired taste. Reading Śrila Prabhupada's books, studying Shastra. It can be hard work, just like studying medicine or psychology or law. It's hard work. You have to actually use your brain. It can be even very tiring. It's like you get tired by physical work, but so by mental work, you also get tired. So we have the tendency to avoid work. So therefore you see things like escalators to save people the work of walking up the stairs. And even they have for walking on the straight, I don't even know what that's called. What's that called in English? I don't know what it's called in English. To save you walking in the airport, they have them, right? What's it called? Any idea? No, just straight. Instead of walking,
На ровной поверхности.
You just stand on that and then you don't walk, and it carries you along. They must have it in Domodedovo somewhere. They have it in many airports. In Delhi, sure. Dubai, huge airports. You have to walk. When you get off the plane, you have to walk 1 kilometer, actually. Anyway, it's just to avoid all that. Just walking isn't really that much hard work, but you can stand on the escalator or whatever. And then when you get home, you can get on that, what do they call that thing? You have walking exercise. What's that called?
Elliptical or bicycle.
Well, there's a bicycle, there's one for walking also. It's a walking exercise machine. I can't remember the name. Treadmill? So in the airport you go on the mechanical walker, and then when you go home for exercise you get on the treadmill. So also we may like to avoid mental work, and we prefer comics to serious books. And novels and all this kind of thing. Just, it's entertainment. Huge business, movie business, in which to enjoy watching a movie, you have to surrender, you willingly surrender your intelligence to pretend that what's being projected on a screen is actually real, and that the action in the film is real, that the cops are chasing the robbers, and the robbers are shooting, and the cops are shooting. You just pretend it's real, and then you get all caught up in it. So it would appear that people in the present age prefer to be stupid than to be intelligent. Life is easy with eyes closed. Living is easy with eyes closed, signed Paul McCartney.
Paul McCartney.
Whose name you might have heard. Prabhupada's books are meant for opening our eyes. Oh, there's that example in that, what's it called, that Matrix film, which I haven't seen. But I know the basic plot because I've been told it's like part of the culture of the Western world, that you talk about the red pill and the blue pill. What's all this red pill, blue pill stuff? So I looked it up on, guess what, Wikipedia. So red pill means you get reality, is it? Yeah.
Красная таблетка означает, ты выбираешь
You
реальность.
live in the simulated reality. That's called Maya. Red pill means Om Jnanatimirandhasya Jnanam
Красная таблетка.
Chakshur Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. But we can't get our eyes open. We have to cooperate to get our eyes opened. The Guru opens the eyes with the salve of transcendental knowledge, but we have to cooperate, otherwise we don't get it. We have to do our work also. What is that? Anartho pashamang sakshat bhakti yogamat hopsaje lokasya janato vidvangs chakre satvata sangitam. One can be freed from all unwanted things by the linking process of devotional service. But the mass of people, they don't know this. And therefore the great sage Vyasadeva compiled the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is in relation to the absolute truth. Are you looking that up, that verse? Okay, what's the next verse? That continues the theme. Oh, you didn't find it? Anartho pasamang sakshat bhakti yogamat hoksaje lokasya janato. If you look up Vidvans, you'll get it. It's in the first canto of Bhagavatam. You got it?
176.
Okay, yeah. What's the next verse? Oh, you just find the verse and then you go up, isn't it? So, Yasyang vai shuryamananam Krishna paramapurushe. What's the next line? Bhaktirudpadyate pungsa shoka moha bhayavaha. By hearing this Srimad Bhagavatam, which is all about Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Yasyang vai shuryamananam Krishna paramapurushe, then all the all auspiciousness, all the lamentation, fear, illusion, they're all dispelled. What's the third line? Krishna Parama Purushe. Bhakti, then devotion arises in the heart, which dispels all lamentation, grief, and illusion. But you have to read it. At last, I've had this serious disease for such a long time, and at last I got the right doctor to treat it, and he gave me the medicine. But I'm still sick. Did you take the medicine? Oh, I never thought of that. It doesn't taste nice, so I don't think I'll take it. You remain sick. Jewish joke, which I just heard in a class, retold in an Indian way. I heard it on Rath Yatra Day, and devotee was giving class. So the devotee praying to God, God, let me win the lottery. And he keeps on praying like that. Then he starts complaining to all his friends. I've been praying for years to win the lottery, and I still didn't win the lottery. So then one day God comes to him and says, hey, I tell you what, let's make a deal so you stop complaining about me. I'll make you win the lottery. But first you have to buy a ticket. So, bhakti doesn't work. It's just been a devotee for 25 years. I still don't see Radha and Krishna dancing. Radha and Krishna still don't come and dance in front of me. In India, I would say that I'm going to give this. In India, I would make the dialogue the next line. I'm leaving this, I'm going to go and worship Sai Baba. And it has its own kind of maya.
В Индии есть своя
Of course, there
майя.
are Sai Baba worshippers here, but it's not as endemic. It's endemic in India. It's not a pandemic all over the world. Hare Krishna. See you after a few minutes. Krishna willing. Continuing on the same topic, chanting Hare Krishna is enough to go back to Godhead. So why all this emphasis on reading? Bhagavatam itself says that chanting is enough to go back to Godhead. But within the Bhagavatam itself also there is again and again recommendations to study the Bhagavatam, just like the 2 verses which I just quoted. In this regard, I can quote Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's instructions recorded in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Bhajane madde shrishta navavidha bhakti Krishna prem Krishna dite dhare mahashakti tar madde sarva shrishta nama sankirtane raparadhe nama loile pai prema dhan. Among all the methods of worshipping Krishna, the 9 methods are the best. That's Shravan-kirtana, Vishnu Smaranam, etc. They all have tremendous potency to deliver love of God, love of Krishna and Krishna himself. And among them all, the best of all is Nama Sankirtan. If one chants without offenses,
Если
then he
человек
gets the treasure of love of Krishna. Now, if we see well, there are various kinds of offenses, of course. Although when we're talking about the holy name, we especially think of offenses against the holy name. That is nama aparad, but there's also seva aparad in deity worship, Vaishnava aparad, especially gurva aparad, dhamma aparada. Now, if we see these offenses, they're mostly based on philosophical misunderstandings.
Yeah.
To consider the names of demigods equal to or independent of the holy name of Lord Vishnu is a philosophical misunderstanding. To consider the glories of the chanting the holy name to be imagination is imagination or exaggeration. That is philosophical misunderstanding. There are also offenses which are more directly behavioral. To blaspheme devotees, to disobey the order of the Guru, to preach the glories of the holy name to faithless persons. These are behavioral offenses. Now, to understand how the names of demigods are not on the level of the name of Vishnu, to understand that the chanting of Hare Krishna is not like some Vedic ritualistic process executed for material gain. One has to understand the teachings of Srimad Bhagavatam. To understand the gravity of offending Vaishnavas, one has to understand Srimad Bhagavatam. And to develop our love for Krishna, we're chanting his names. Who is this person? We have to learn from Srimad Bhagavatam. So these 2 processes, Shravan and Kirtan, they're interlinked and they both nourish each other. It's not that everyone is going to be a great scholar, but everyone should, along with chanting, at least hear about Krishna. And for those who are going to be brahmanas and lead human society, intimate knowledge of Shastra is required. Just as, for instance, same example, to to be a lawyer and help people in the legal tangles, you have to know your stuff. Which means you have to put in the work of studying and internalizing and remembering. Otherwise, and even to guide Vaishnava society, it requires devotees who are well versed in Shastric understanding. Otherwise, misunderstandings will enter. We hear about so many upper sampradayas. Aul, Baul, Kata, Bhaja, Nera, Neri, Smarta, Jat Gosai, Saki Beki, Churadhari, Gauranga Nagari. The 13 were mentioned by one Tota Babaji, but some other researcher, he was a sociological researcher, found out several hundred of them. What are these upper sampradayas? What is Hinduism, for that matter? Hinduism means you start off with the Shastra, and then, because you don't really like everything in it, but you want to get the benefit from it, so you just adjust it a little bit. You adjust it a little bit, and then someone else adjusts it a little bit more, and someone else adjusts it, and different people adjust it in different ways. And you end up with a hodgepodge of concocted ideas conducted under the Mayavad philosophy. So we require devotees who are not only learned in Shastra, but who are ideal in their practice of Krishna consciousness. In other words, Brahmanas to guide human society, and especially Vaishnava society. Otherwise, deviation is inevitable. I would like to see the Brahmana initiation for devotees who have undergone rigorous training, both in study and proper behavior. Preferably from a young age, so you don't have so much garbage to try and undo that is attempted in the Gurukuls. It was a very bold move of Śrila Prabhupada to give Brahminical initiation to his Western disciples, considering that they don't have the culture at all. But Śrila Prabhupada had great faith that by seriously following the practices of Krishna consciousness as given by him, they could rise to the standard of Brahmanas who can guide human society. Considering this, I'm in many cases not very enthusiastic to give Brahminical initiation. There should be a deep study, ideal character, and the ability to impart that to others also. Of course, Śrila Prabhupada, he gave the example that we're training on the job. It's like an apprenticeship. He gave the example that to be a high court judge, you have to be properly qualified, then you can be appointed as a high court judge. But Śrila Prabhupada wanted to spread Krishna consciousness all over the world, so he gave initiation and told people to go out and preach all over the world, with the idea that by acting in that role, they would imbibe the qualities required for that role. With respect to his giving sannyas to young men from the Western world who had only been chanting Hare Krishna, in many cases less than 5 years, Śrila Prabhupada gave the example of battlefield commissions. Battlefield commission means that in the middle of a war, where all the soldiers are fighting, some of the senior officers get killed. But to continue the fight, someone has to take charge. you just can't bring, in the middle of a battle, you just can't call someone from 1,000 kilometers away and stick them in charge. So one of the officers who's left might call out he's seen one of the soldiers is fighting very well, when an ordinary soldier, and says, okay, now you are a sergeant or something like this. He's suddenly made a sergeant. He hasn't been officially appointed, but someone needs to take charge. So, okay, you're a sergeant, at least for this duration of this battle. Someone has to take the leadership role. In an emergency situation, preaching Krishna consciousness all over the world, Śrila Prabhupada wanted to spread Krishna consciousness as widely as possible, as quickly as possible. But he also gave the idea of properly training people, that slow down a bit and properly train people. He spoke of boiling the milk. That means that instead of bringing more and more water, increasing the volume of the milk, let's work with the devotees we have, boil down the milk and make it very solid, and work with the devotees we have to improve their quality. And he wanted Varnashram colleges. That means not running madly out to distribute books. Not doing that, not immediately anyway, but to sit down and study for months and years and be trained and come to the mode of goodness. So all these things are required. Book distribution shouldn't stop, should be pushed on with full vigor. But the Varnashram should also be established. Okay. Much time left.
Dear Guru Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances at the dust of your lotus feet. All glories to Śrila Prabhupada. Nowadays we can see that some dolls for babies, dolls of Krishna, Radharani, Narasimha, Jagannatha Baladeva Subhadra, and children are playing with these dolls as soft toys. They don't understand that this is Supreme Personality of Godhead, and they can be neglectful with such toys. Tear them apart or throw them away.
Put them in their mouth.
Yes. Is it acceptable?
In the Bhagavatam second canto, there's a description of Parikshit Maharaj in his childhood playing with dolls, Krishna Lila, and he wouldn't come for his food when he was called, even as a child. And we also find that Śrila Prabhupada, at his own request, was inducted into deity worship by his father. At a young age he did this. But Śrila Prabhupada also said that for deity worship they should not be engaged until, I can't remember, is that 12 years old, something like that. So it seems it depends on qualification also. Even in childhood there may be higher qualification or lower qualification. The general process that Srila Prabhupada recommended for children is to join with the adults in arati and kirtan. We see the childhood pastimes of Lord Nityananda. They would play the pastimes of Rama and Lakshman. So that would be better. There's a book published in English called Krishna Kriyada by Bharat Chandra Prabhu, who's a disciple of Bhakti Radha Swami. I think you don't know. I don't think he came to Russia.
No.
So it's called Krishna Kriyada, and it's a whole. He has over 100 traditional games for children to play in relation to Krishna. We're instituting that in our village communities for the young children. So that would be better. Because it's not, if you have a form of Krishna and you're chewing it, it's not good. You see that book, see if you can get it translated, but it requires community spirit also. a lot of the playing of children with dolls, which is especially done by girls, is because they don't have so many friends to play with, they're at home, and because women don't have enough children. Otherwise, when a girl's 4 or 5 years old, she already becomes the proxy mother for the next child or the next 2 children. They don't need a doll to play with because they have their younger brother or sister, and they're picking up, and the baby's half the size of the little girl, but they become a proxy mother like that, which is a great relief for the real mother also. I just saw shortly before I left India, I visited one of our village projects. And one of the devotees living there, she's married to an Indian devotee who was studying in Russia, and then she went back to India with him. So she has 2 daughters, and then and the eldest daughter, I think, is about 5 or 6 years old. Then another of our devotees just has a daughter also. And this older daughter is completely absorbed in the daughter of someone else from another family, just completely in love and kissing and holding and spends all her time with her. She doesn't need a doll. And they grow up in the village like that. They don't know anything except Krishna consciousness. I don't think there's time for any other question, no?
There is one to this topic.
Okay, but I don't know if there's time. You better say this today.
In Vaishnava community, one of the challenges is education of the children. How exactly should be trained boys and girls in Vaishnava communities?
Yeah, I can answer that in 30 seconds. Go visit one of our farms in India. Spend at least a few days and see what we're doing. Bring it here. Śrila Prabhupada said, for girls, the main thing is to learn how to cook, how to clean, and how to be faithful to their husband. They should read.
Они должны
They should
читать.
read Prabhupada's books. That's it in a nutshell. Hare Krishna.
Someone asked what about
I'm their doll. You don't like me as a doll? No. All right. Okay, there's no more time now, so just take it.
You are too big.
There you go. You can take.
They ask about boys in a nutshell, how to train the boys. You spoke about girls.
Oh, actually, for boys and girls, they join in all the artis, the kirtans, everything. The main thing for everyone is chanting Hare Krishna. For the boys, yeah, same thing. Reading.
Мальчики тоже
A lot of
самое.
emphasis on that. But and we see as they get older, if they're scholarly or less scholarly or whatever. Most of them are not. And then they may be trained in carpentry or farming or whatever. One of our boys who grew up in the Gurukul, he's good in carpentry, which is very useful if you're building more houses. There's another one who's just completely into the cows. He's about, 18 years old, and he can control all the cows. So that's nice. Something useful, practical, he can do all his life. He's quite happy to live on our farm and go on chanting Hare Krishna and looking after the cows. Doesn't need a psychologist.
И ему не нужны психологи.
Our aim is to put you out of a job.
Наша цель сделать так, чтобы у тебя не было работы.
She's a heavy woman. Maybe she'll be the first woman prime minister of Russia.
Девочка сказала, нет, Махарадж сказал, очень серьезная девочка, может, она будет первым премьер-министром в России, женщина. Спасибо.
So, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna,
Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.